Hello and welcome to Rules for Disruptors, making, managing, and scaling the case for change with MongoDB. My name is Jeff Needham. I'm an architect inside of Travelers Insurance. Yes, we are the Red Umbrella Company. We've spent the last several years building some really great things inside the technology and innovation space, the least of not which is MongoDB. I've had the extreme privilege to have been part of these efforts. I've also presented the last 2 years at MongoDB World, and the question that I've gotten more often than not is not how did you implement with MongoDB, but how did you get your management to let you build with MongoDB. So this is less of a technical talk and more of a social commentary and a change management playbook on how we did just that, our story, and really the path that we took to get to where we are today. So I'm going to share several things with you today. How we made and managed our initial case for change, how we went and scaled that across our organization with a coalition of family and friends, some really compelling use cases, and then at the end, a recap. So making and managing the case for change. Why did we do this? How did we do this? Well, why? Well, because the most precious asset is time. Software runs the world, and there's never enough time to write enough of it. We'll always have more feature requests in the backlog than time and people to execute. And this is just the reality of software. And we also believe in our shop that chance favors the prepared. We don't wait to act. We find inefficiencies and we fix them and address them before they become issues or before people ask us to do that. We also believe that maybe our competitors know this. We want to do this before they do this. So our story really begins in the middle of 2017. We've got a very simple use case for identifying and managing prospective customers. This application has gone through a high degree of change with our little team. We've gone through multiple system rewrites due to requirement changes. But also, this application has a low degree of risk because it's not significantly financially impactful, unlike a billing or a policy issuance system could be. So here we are. We think this is the perfect opportunity to incubate with MongoDB. Now, in the spirit of change, prior to this, we had already gone through the transformation from monolith to microservices. We had containerized just about our entire landscape of services, and we started moving towards continuous delivery. And so in addition to not wanting to rewrite our relational database for a third time, we began to suspect that despite all of the things that we had done, we were still being held back, and several of us believed that it was because of our relational database. So our little team begins this small effort of embarking on writing with MongoDB. But let me tell you about Bob. Now, Bob doesn't like change. Bob is in our shop. Bob wants agility, but he doesn't want the risk that comes with it. And I apologize in advance to anybody whose name is Bob. I promise you, I randomly picked this name just to protect the names of the innocent here. But really, Bobs are everywhere in our shop. Bobs are everywhere in every shop. The Bobs of the world know that there is a tried and true way to do things. They know what's always worked, and in times of change, they can be very helpful in reminding you of these practices. But the reality is this, and I think Saul Alinsky, the godfather of political organizing, probably said it best. The threat is more terrifying than the thing itself. And I think that's highly apparent in our IT project here when you look at our database designs. So release 1, really simple use case, not so simple database. Release 2, the requirements change. Again, not a very simple database. So release 3, we decide to move to MongoDB and the document model. We get a far more elegant design at the database layer. So here for us, really, the threat was definitely more terrifying than the thing itself. And in fact, the thing itself was great. So at the end of our project, we've gone from 8 weeks start to finish with a team that has absolutely no experience with MongoDB going into this, including myself. And in 8 weeks, which is our typical Agile release, we cut over from our existing Oracle APIs to MongoDB. We decided to quantify this success story because we were so happy. So we calculated that we had about a 75% increase in developer productivity. We eliminated over 600 lines of code because we got rid of the object relational mapping layer. Yuck, who likes those? And we eliminated about a third of time in terms of our time to market. And at the end here, we've got a really excited team. And this is our family. Our family are these developers that now know that this is just a better way to do things. I love this database. There are developers, there are architects. They intimately know now that MongoDB was the significant enabler for the productivity and efficiency gains. So it goes without saying that despite all the noise, despite all of our previous efforts from going to monolith to microservices, from deploying 5 times a year to continuous delivery, that the oldest component in our technology landscape, when we replaced it, gave us the most lift. And these things are really just not mutually exclusive to one another. So surely we have won over Bob, right? Bob has no more excuse to throw any stones at us, right? Well, if you guessed no, you're definitely right. And in fact, we actually discovered that we had more Bobs than we even realized. So some insight into Bob. Bob knows what's always worked, right? But if you present Bob with an alternative and he's got no basis of understanding for that solution or approach, you're going outside of his experience. And I think Saul Alinsky said it best, never go outside the expertise or experience of your people because it can cause confusion, fear, and retreat. So Bob gets nervous, Bob gets confused. At the worst, Bob retreats. No MongoDB, right? We don't want that. So we really decided that because of that, we were deliberately going to start small, and a small project and a small win. A small project will carry less risk, so therefore it's more likely to be successful, and that a small success and then another small success will build momentum. We want that, right? The last thing we want out of the gate is a reason for the Bobs of the world to say, see, I told you should have stayed where you were. And the second thing, we can manage the fear now. Because it's small and it's not financially impactful, there's just less folks that are afraid. And with less folks afraid, it's easier to manage the few that are than if you've got dozens of people worried about, you're going to rip apart my billing system and you're going to rewrite it with this thing. I have no idea what it is, but it's making me nervous, right? And the last thing that we did here, we built a success story. We knew this was going to be successful. We were successful. And at the end of that success, we decided we're going to capitalize on this. We're going to make it a showcase for change, and we're going to put this in front of as many people as we need to. But we're going to document our success. And the story that went up to our leadership, aside from the metrics I shared with you earlier, is that really MongoDB made us significantly faster. It let us solve problems in far less time than we were with relational. And it also is going to let us solve problems that potentially we wouldn't even consider with a relational. And you'll see that in some of our use cases. The two reasons why it's making us significantly faster is because, well, there's no predefined schema, and it's not a fixed schema. And as soon as I can write some code, I can insert it into the database. No data modeling, no data engineering, I'm done. And the second thing is that what you can do in MongoDB in one object might take you 3 or 4 objects in relational. Yep. Again, yuck, right? If I want to read this data together all the time, well, why can't I write it together? And that's what the MongoDB document model lets you do. So now we've got our win under our belt. How do we scale this? How do we bring this to the rest of the organization? How do we keep building more wins? Well, we believe that a series of successes are going to help make us more friends. And our friends are particularly important because our friends are our bank. Our friends give us air cover. Our friends are our business product owners who are not maybe so passionate like we are and I am about MongoDB. But they know that if it saves them time and money, good, I'm on board with this. I like it. I don't care what it is. You guys are telling me it's great. Awesome. I'm going to give you air cover and you're going to be able to build what you need. So we've got we've got family now, and we've got friends. So now what's the next thing that we do? Well, we use our friends and our family to make more friends and family. We get our developers who have just built with MongoDB in the same room with developers who have not built with MongoDB yet, or are interested in building with MongoDB. And 9 times out of 10, these guys walk out of that room and they're a lot more excited, and now they want to build with MongoDB, right? They've just heard it from the horse's mouth. Well, the same goes for friends. I don't care what it is you guys are building. You guys are telling me it's great, but there's nothing like a business product owner hearing a testimonial from another business product owner, a friend hearing it from another friend. So that's really what we did. When you get a series of wins and a series of successes under your belt, you don't have to sell your story as much anymore. The people that surround you, the passionate developers and architects, the business owners that you're saving money, they are going to now tell your story for you. And the more wins you get under the belt, the more that happens, the more inertia you build. So this is why we say to scale the case, do what you did on your first release, but just keep the pressure on and keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And by the way, don't leave anybody behind on this effort, right? Don't go outside of the experience of your people, whether they be developers, QA folks, business analysts, business product owners. Teach everyone the document model. Show everyone how to read and write data in MongoDB. It's very easy to do, and it's a very beneficial thing. So here we are in Travelers. We've got a bit of a timeline here. In the beginning, or the middle rather, of 2017, we go to production with our first 2 collections of MongoDB. We start that year with nothing. Nobody builds with MongoDB. Nobody has anything in production. By the middle of the year, we've got 2 collections. Well, we fast forward 1 year later, every team inside our business insurance Agile shop is now using MongoDB. This is pretty significant. A year later after that, we've sunset some significant legacy assets with MongoDB, and I'll get to those in the use cases. In 2020 now, here we are. All lines of business and Travelers are using MongoDB, which is incredible. And we've begun in the business insurance shop to move our on-premises applications into MongoDB Atlas for full workload isolation and the ultimate in production resiliency. But I'd like to take a look at our strangers and our family and our friends and the ratio on that same timeline from 2017 to 2020. So we've got a couple of family and friends on the right there. We got our Bobs in red, and we got our strangers in gray. In 2018, well, we have more Bobs than we even realized, but we also have more family and friends. In 2019 here, we've sunset significant legacy assets, as I mentioned. So we've got a lot more family and friends now at some even higher levels than before, but there still are Bobs. Well, in 2020, I'm happy to say that there are no Bobs in the world left. Well, no, that is actually a lie. There are, but they're just hiding behind the folks that are so excited. They give us enough air cover where the Bobs that are still there, well, they don't really matter. So they matter, but their voices is not as predominant as it used to be before. So here we are in 2020. We've won over enough folks in our organization. There's enough believers, and we've got some really good momentum now. So use cases. I'm going to start this with actually 2 views of the world here for us that aren't use cases yet, but I'd like to look at velocity. As I mentioned, in 2016 to 2017, we cut over from monolith to microservices. We move into continuous deployment and delivery, but we also start to build with MongoDB. So our number of production deployments starts to skyrocket here. And I think to draw the parallel to how significant MongoDB was in that equation, well, if you look at the number of production database objects from 2012 to 2013, 2017, we've gone from about 12 to 35 to 50 now to this explosion of growth in 2018 and definitely in 2019. So there's 3 use cases rather I'd like to get into detail here. There's a product called IBM Portal, WebSphere Portal does a few things for you as a web-based application. It does your user authentication and it does your user authorization. Now, let's say you've got two users, they have slightly different roles. The user experience on that web-based application for, let's say, an account management screen is slightly different based upon their role, right? So a more elevated role, I might see some buttons and functionality on the screen that the less elevated role doesn't have. And those two different customized user experiences based upon role are predefined as actually HTML instances, and they're stored inside WebSphere Portal. And so when a user comes to Portal and says, hey, my name is Bob, I'm an admin, I'd like you to give me the account management screen, I'm going to retrieve the more elevated version of the HTML, the one that has the more buttons and things on the screen. And this is a very complicated platform. So server-side HTML assembly, that's a mouthful, but it is even more of a mouthful when you talk about how that HTML is authored and stored in Portal. So you've got to take that HTML and you've got to author it in XML. Yuck again, right? And then you've got to take that XML version of the HTML and you've got to post it to REST APIs to get it into Portal. And if you want to now take that and migrate it to the next environment and the next environment, you've got to call the API and get the XML, customize it if it's different for the next environment, and post it to the next environment. And even worse, if you were to get under the hood and look at this product, and you were to find the table in Portal where this HTML is stored, you wouldn't see XML, you wouldn't see HTML. I promise you would look and find something that looks entirely different from either of that. So we said, the heck with this. This is super complicated. This is not a product that you would think, hey, I've got MongoDB, I can replace MongoDB with this. Well, that's exactly what we did. We stored the HTML, the custom HTML snippets inside MongoDB as HTML. And the most beautiful thing I can promise you is when you see your HTML inside MongoDB JSON as HTML, as it was meant to be stored and read. And we've gone from a complicated, very costly platform to a MongoDB implementation with Node.js services on top. We store the users in MongoDB, we store their roles in MongoDB, and we store all of the role-specific HTML versions in MongoDB. In business insurance, we've got lots of policies, millions and millions of policies. Each one of those policies is stored and managed in up to a dozen different systems, depending upon the type of policy. Each one of those policies throughout its life cycle of a typical year may have hundreds of transactions executed against it for coverage edits, for pricing edits, for compliance edits. If you take those millions of policies and you look at all the different types of transactions that could be executed against all of them and all the different types of policies there are, you end up with thousands and thousands of attributes. If you were to say, I want to build an operational data store of all the policies and all of the transactions underneath them, and you were to store that in relational, it would probably be a fairly heartbreaking effort for you to data model that, certainly to then build the tables, and definitely to try to build code against that, because you're probably looking at hundreds of tables and thousands of attributes across them. Well, in MongoDB, we've done the impossible in relational, and we've stored all of those policies and all of those transactions in 4 collections. It's really incredible. Our last use case here is IBM FileNet, which is a large-scale content management solution that offers users the ability to upload documents attached to business processes and to capture the metadata relevant to those business processes. The username, the customer number associated to that document, the time that you uploaded that document, the document ID, and then I can go back in and I can search for that metadata and pull up the relevant documents. So awesome, great solution. The issue under the hood is that all of that document metadata is stored in a fixed schema relational database. And what that means is if you come along with new document types, and those new document types have new types of attributes, new types of metadata associated with them, those fields have to be added to the existing relational database under the hood. So you've literally got to re-engineer the database every time you add new documents to this solution. Again, not something that you would think of, hey, I've got this MongoDB database, I can replace FileNet with it. Well, we did just that. We replaced all of FileNet in our business insurance shop with a homegrown solution that uploads and the business attachments into Amazon's simple storage buckets, S3, along with the document ID, stores all of the relevant metadata associated with those documents in MongoDB, and then a set of services that allow you to do search and retrieval of those documents. And in fact, we can do advanced text search and even now fuzzy search and type ahead with the Lucene indexes in Atlas, a feature that is just simply not possible in IBM FileNet. So our business folks are thrilled. Not only do we have massive cost savings, not only do we get to run this on commodity hardware now, but we've actually enabled backlog features previously not possible with FileNet. And now here we are in 2020. We are moving our workloads in business insurance now to Atlas. We're getting guaranteed resiliency for our mission critical applications. And that means full workload isolation as well. So there's zero impacts from other neighbors. And this is really the perfect database for Agile teams. We can performance test and scale out our cluster in minutes. And as soon as that performance test is done, we can scale it back. We're only paying for what we need. And it really is the perfect Agile database. So in recap here, how we made and managed our case for change. Well, we started small. We started with something that we could incubate that was not financially impactful, and we built a small win, and we capitalized on that win, and we built our success story. And we did the same thing over and over and over again when we scaled it out. We kept the pressure on, and we built that coalition of family and friends, and we made our family and friends make us more family and friends. And we built great things. And hopefully all of you that are listening now have either built great things or are really looking forward to building great things now with MongoDB, just like we have. Thank you to the entire MongoDB staff who made this event possible. I'd like to personally thank Tony Rossi and Chris Alphin. We love you guys. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Thank you, folks. That's all in my presentation today. Thank you so much for listening. Please, please, please reach out to me at the social media link below. I would love to chat with you about MongoDB, about your data needs, about your shop. Feel free to connect with me. Thank you so much. I hope you really enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you really enjoy MongoDB Live.